you, and they might call you to do some wild stuff that isn't necessarily what you've been practicing, but if you can do what you do in training, you don't want anybody to get hurt, but especially if it's the talent, the actor, that's like, I'm trying to even imagine what that would feel like. That would just be like the worst day ever. So not ideal.
Okay, hey everyone, this is Abhi, and this is a No Budget Filmmaking Podcast. And I have with me my wonderful friend Taylor Hill, and he will introduce himself. Hey, Taylor.
Hey, yes, I am Taylor Hill. Technically in the industry, my name is Taylor C. Hill. There was a Victoria's Secret model with my name already when I signed up for SAG. So Taylor C. Hill or Taylor is what my name is on set.
Okay, yeah, I would say you're the better looking one. Okay.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate that.
Okay. I think there's a lag. Okay. So I was saying that Uh, how did you, since if we start with the beginning, how did you get into this industry and what motivated you to do it? First would be the motivation and why you wanted to go into it.
For sure. I had so to get into stunts is kind of an interesting. That was like a pivot for me actually. Back in the day, I knew I wanted to be an actor. I was in high school, and it was kind of like, okay, start figuring out what you want to do with your life. And I kept watching all these movies, and every time I'd watch like Top Gun, I'd be like, I'm gonna be a pilot. And then I'd watch something else, and it'd be like, no, 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 I think I want to be like in the FBI or this. And I finally just realized that I wanted to portray these characters on screen and inspire the people the way that I was inspired by these movies. So that's when I moved to LA and started pursuing acting. And it was slow. I was making progress and growing in that, got SAG and had some momentum. And then COVID happened and kind of, threw everyone off. And that's when I started training. Because I didn't know what else to do. I just started working out again like I did back in high school. And I was PAing shortly after as things were kind of opening up. I was on this show called The Dropout. And I was just kind of bouncing around trying to find a department that I vibed with. Wasn't really thinking about stunts at the time. And I was having a coffee, just settling in for the day. And I heard on the radio, like, hey, if anybody can find our stunt coordinator, that'd be great. And I jumped right on it and met Oakley Lehman, who gave me a lot of really good advice at the time. And I kind of watched what he was doing over the course of that day on set. And he told me kind of how to get started in stunts. And I just followed his advice. And now I do acting and stunts.
Oh, that's amazing. Uh, so for a new person who's just thinking about like getting into stunts, my first question is, and maybe it's a dumb question, but do we need any certifications or anything, or you just start getting into it and just play along? I don't know.
I wish. No, it's like a wild, you just start and there's no real route to it. There's no school. In a way, that's really cool. I think I've grown to appreciate it. In the beginning, it's really frustrating because you're like, what do I even do? I need a guy like Oakley. But through the process of training and putting your reel together, there's certain gyms that everyone trains at, and you kind of just find your way. And in the process of finding all of that, that's where I think you learn a lot about how to really be a good stunt person and a really good performer, how to work with other people and be very flexible. And so I think it's that way for a reason. But the classic like joke, and it's not a dumb question because everybody asks all the time, how'd you get into this? And 9 out of 10 stunt people will be like, I fell into it, boom. But it really is a different way for everyone. And I just got lucky and met Oakley at the right time and kind of did what he said. And yeah, but no, if they really did have just a list of everything you had to do, it'd be so much easier. Because in the beginning, you're training and you don't even know really if it's going to the right thing. But that's where you have to really just trust your mentors and listen to the people that came before you, and they'll pass down the culture, and it just grows from there.
Okay. And there's no, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no one route to go into this, right? I can do, for example, motorcycle stunts and then I can go into it, and you can do boxing or martial arts. Or is there something that everyone needs to learn? I guess perform for the camera, I think everyone has to learn. And do you have any experience in that?
Yeah, definitely. So yes and no. There are a million different ways. There's specialists that only do, like you said, motorcycles or water. There's like equestrian specialists. There's guys that were former pros in a sport that are now doing it for TV and film. So specialty is kind of its own world, and everyone kind of has their background for them to figure out, what was I doing back in the day, practicing all the time that I could maybe um use skill wise on TV. But I would say like the classic, like there's certain skills that pretty much everybody needs if you're not just like a specialist. And they always say fighting, falling, you know, those are the two. This is like 90% of the jobs. And then other stuff is just kind of goes, if you can prove your athleticism through your fighting ability and your movement, and you prove your toughness through your wrecking ability and your performance and kind of your consistency, how many takes do you need? If you can build your reputation on those kind of foundational skills, then a coordinator knows they can trust you, and they might call you to do some wild stuff that isn't necessarily what you've been practicing, but if you can do what you do in training, they will, they'll translate it to whatever the scene calls for that day.
Okay, so in the sense, you said fighting and falling.
Yeah.
So, okay, falling, I guess, by taking a shot or just falling like that, and yeah, I don't know how to say that, but for fighting, is there any martial arts right now that is famous, or is it like you just have to know some things?
So yeah, like fighting is where everyone wants to focus right away. But I've found that the majority of the work is actually on the wrecking side of things where you're taking the reactions. There's like one Keanu, but he takes out 30 dudes.
Oh
So
yeah.
I've found that it's actually, yeah, everyone wants to be the hammer. Everybody wants to throw that perfect punch, be the hero. But it's more about how well you can sell, even if it's not a perfect punch. If you're paired up with an actor who's brand new and they don't know really, your job that day is to make them look really strong. So that's what I try to focus on in training, is just no matter who I'm paired with, if I am selling the hits to where their side of the fight looks really good, then that means I'm doing my job. And wrecking is where I decided to focus initially just because of my background. And to me, that's a really important part of stunts, just because actors are getting really good these days, and a lot of them are really super down to train, and they've figured out that martial arts is actually really fun, especially when you're being coached by someone at a high level. So a lot of actors are getting better at kind of doing their own fights, and but the one thing they'll never really let them do is hit the ground. So yeah, man, it's such a vast industry. Somebody's watching this and is like, no way, man, I got in fighting right away and I've never fallen. Like, everyone has a different route, but to me, that's just kind of like how it fell into place for me and what I've observed. So as far as martial arts, I mean, a lot of people are doing, it's trendy, it's right now Muay Thai, I would say, is very popular.
Okay.
I love Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu. That's because of John Wick, kind of changed the style. A lot of people are changing levels now. Um, so you kind of have to just be flexible. And my mentors told me coming up, if you can get really good at one martial art, and just like nail your basics and your form and have clean lines, it's kind of like cooking. It's, if you can make one thing really good, it's just different ingredients. You can adjust from that, place. So a lot of people think you got to do more than you do. They think they need to be like a black belt. When I first started, I was like, oh, no way, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
but you just really have to have good basics and be able to react and sell the other side of the fight, I think.
Okay, I guess you brought in a really interesting point of like John Wick because it changed the whole thing entirely out of nowhere. Exact, and a lot of people are learning their own stunts, and it's kind of I don't want to say it, but taboo when you see there's a clear stunt double for the fights, and people don't like it, and everyone is so smart they can track. Okay, this is not his stunts and everything. But so your job is basically to make other people look cool, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm that person asking you, okay, I want to go into wrecking, like taking hits, what should I do exactly and how to keep myself safe? Because there's one more thing that I guess everyone should know, that when you're doing all those things, and I'll get to the falling too, because you have to keep yourself in that regard too and save your work. But how would you want it how would you what advice would you give me?
Yeah, that's a great question too. A lot of people are afraid of train wrecks. They think that, or falling, aka wrecking in our biz, you're gonna take a wreck. A lot of people think like, oh, I don't want to get hurt in training. I'm gonna like save my body. This is a really weird story, so please just bear with me, but I promise it's gonna come around and make sense. Um, I was watching when I was first starting out. Um, I started watching Stuntmen Reacts, and it's a YouTube channel, and those guys are super cool, and it's a really good place to kind of begin your stunt knowledge because I think they portray the culture and everything really well. But I was watching that, and they had Eric Linden come up, who's like John Bernthal's double, he's a legend, and he was like, if anybody has any questions, just DM me. So I basically asked him everything you're asking me, and I was like, dude, I'm willing to get taken out, whatever, I'm willing to get hit by my own car. I don't even care. And he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, no, don't do that. Any idiot can get it absolutely blasted. Practical is like no problem. You got to learn how to do it safely. So that really put into perspective for me. It's not about like necessarily going out there and being like the one that's not scared. In fact, that's like, that can kind of indicate that you're a wild, like they call it cowboy, that you might not be, you might just go too fast, and for the glory. So that's actually kind of frowned upon. I would say the way I learned Rex was, so I was watching this Ted Bundy documentary, and this is where it gets weird, but I promise it will close. They were talking to him about how he like escaped from prison in, I think it was Colorado or Utah, but he jumped out of like a 3-story window and then like escaped. And they're like, "Oh my God, how did you like manage to fall that far without getting hurt?" And he's claimed that he would climb up to the top of his bunk bed in his cell and then just jump onto like the concrete in his cell, and you would do it like 100 times a day just to like build his like his bones density, I guess. After I saw that, I was like, huh, I can probably do the same thing. So in training, at the end of each fight, in fight choreo practice, it usually ends with like a kill shot, like a wreck, an uppercut that takes you to the ground or whatever. And a lot of people, for just training, if we're not filming, they'll kind of allude to the fall, but they won't really go. And I had just decided, like, if we're training on grass, like, I'm not gonna pad up. I'm just gonna wreck like I, would, and I'm gonna take it to the ground. And after like months and months of just taking kind of free recs, starting on mats and grass, and then kind of building my way up to harder surfaces, I found I was like Bundy. I had like gotten stronger. I wasn't getting sore after as much anymore. So to me, my philosophy, and I'm not a scientist or anything, but I would say wrecking is just like nothing to it but to do it. And I tell my little brother, he's a parkour guy, and he doesn't want to work on wrecking. But I'm like, dude, every time you fall down in parkour, like on accident, you're getting stronger. Your neck just got a little bit more strong from that, even though you didn't get hurt, but now it'll repair. So as long as you put your body through it and then eat well, to me, there's really no point in drilling wrecks. You know, just there's really no form to it because each wreck is so different depending on where the hit comes from and just the factors involved. So I think the most important thing is just having a strong body that you trust can take it, and you have to build that in the gym or sneak in some recs on choreo.
Okay, uh, I get it, but when we were talking about the kill shot or the final shot, uh, most of the time when you're moving and you're just going limp, uh, that that seems a little bit difficult, and I don't know. And also, your neck strength is I don't know because you're throwing your neck out really hard. And the channel name is, by the way, if no one knows, is Corridor Crew. They are the one who do stuntman reacts and visual effect reacts and all those things. And yeah, well, my question was, do you build up for that too, or you have to slowly build that up? Because it's the neck is, for me especially, it's the neck. I feel like, oh my God, their neck must be sore right now.
Yeah, well, definitely, dude. For your first couple sessions, yeah, you come home and you're like, sweet, I did choreo for the first time. This is awesome. And you're never sore that night. Then the next morning you wake up and you like try to lift your head from the pillow and it's like, oh, head snaps all the time. Um, But like anything else with practice, it's a lot like martial arts. Like if you can get through that initial pain and kind of just breathe and calmly just keep showing up, your body starts to compensate and you're not made out of like glass anymore. You're more carved out of wood. So it's stunts are really cool that way because it kind of does show like um you know your body doesn't lie. It's like, have you done this 1,000 times or not? And if you have, people can see that right away and you don't have to say it. And if you haven't, you can say anything and people aren't gonna quite, it just doesn't add up. So
Mm.
that's what I really appreciate about this industry. It kind of like that principle really flows throughout it. You know, you got to put in the work
Yeah,
on your
it's
own. Yeah,
yeah, so it's like your body doesn't lie. You cannot lie to the camera basically, right?
exactly. And that's like what I tell people when they're like, "What do I do to start out like with stunts?" Um, my best advice is just like save up 10,000 bucks and lose 10 pounds. Like if you don't have to do those specifically, but like if you can imagine the amount of work it would take to like do both of those things within your life, that's kind of like the dedication at least that you're going to have to, you know, you're going to have to change your body. You're going to have to pay for opportunities to go meet people. It's the hardest in the beginning. So that's usually when the enthusiasm is the highest though too, which is good. But yeah, it's not having a clear route is the mental really training. Believing that what you're doing is productive when you've been showing up to training and you haven't really seen any results yet. And that's where like you can lean on your community as a whole and the people that have come before you. Because everybody that is ahead had somebody do that for them too. Sorry, I've got like a weird glare going. Let me see.
That's fine. I'll edit that part, this part more. You just like, okay. So my follow up would be, okay, so you train yourself for wrecking or let's say fighting or falling. How do you train yourself for a camera? Do you record yourself? Because obviously camera has its marks and you have your mark and everything because that changes with the gym training that you're doing. So what do you do with that?
Dude, yes. Hitting marks is like the thing that no one talks about in training, but like they expect every job I've ever done. They're like, "Hey, I know you're about to do some crazy stuff and like maybe you're gonna like get hurt, but can you land like right there specific for the camera?" And you're just like, "Yeah, you know, that is really if you can a lot of it is spotting, you know, if you I'll just like obsess with the crack on the ground that I know I gotta land on. And like as they're setting up lights and cameras and stuff, I'm just like zoned in on it. Yeah, it's just where the training comes from. Like if we're doing choreo and I have to throw a punch past you and it's got to be close for the angle for camera to read, I can't just miss by a foot. I've got to know, even though we're going full speed, exactly how close my fist is to the actor's face or whatever. And a lot of it's spatial awareness. And that's again, you can't really get better at that by sitting at home and like watching YouTube videos, you know? It comes from like going to the park with your friends when it's going to be like years before you get paid probably. Um that's where all those skills are kind of honed and built. So this industry as far as Hollywood goes, it's like the most meritocracy, I think. Um and yeah, hitting marks is like that's the smallest little detail, but it separates somebody from like a stud and like or somebody where the coordinator's like, "Oh, I'm not really sure. Like I hope you can get it." Or, you know, we don't really have time, but I guess we'll do an extra take. Um I forgot what your original question was, man. Sorry.
No, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It happens. It happens. You're passionate. That shows passion. My question was, how can someone train to hit that mark? So it's just like make just someone else, your friend is recording it, and you said, okay, my mark is here, and going like that, or there's some. It's always mental, or how did you do it, and how would you suggest someone to do it?
For sure. Yeah, it's well just doing the choreo over and over. Like as many times Travis Wong, one of my favorite coordinators, always says like, "Oh, how many of you played sports in high school?" And the whole gym will raise their hand. He's like, "How many like hours a week did you practice?" And we're all like 3 a day for like so 15 hours ish. It's like, "Okay, how many of you are doing that for your stunt career?" And no one, you know, rare do people have time to train that way. But that really is the mentality. Like you can only get better at these things by doing them. And to go back to your question, the best way I think to get better at it is to take video and whoever's filming the fight is practicing their camera work. And then at the end, I used to do so many free footage fights just so I could see myself. Um, you do choreo and you're like nervous on the way there in the beginning, and then you do it and everyone turns out to be cool. And then you like do the fight and you remember all the moves, and in your brain it looks awesome. And then they send you the video and you drive home feeling like such a stud. And then used to just sit here for like an hour just watching the video and be like, oh, and just question everything and see every little like weird, my elbow's out there and I'm making a surfer fist and all these horrible things I would see myself. And that's really where like I would go back the next week, and something about like seeing yourself look wrong on camera really just, you don't want to do that again. So watching footage motivated me a lot. And then it's kind of nice when you're ready, you have some footage for when you're ready to start posting, the work that you put in. A lot of people post too early, but I think, for that first chunk of time, those videos are like for you in your house. And if you have a mirror, I used to just see what was wrong and then do like 10 of them and just fix it and try over and over to just iron out the wrinkles. So yeah, footage is like very key. And then, if your friends are shooting your fight and you're shooting theirs, you're all kind of practicing, what can help, what angle helps sell that the best, or like, do we shoot it from low, or like, do I want the ground in on this wreck, or like, do I want to, you learn kind of how to pre-vis for yourself so that when you get invited into an opportunity where other people are shooting it, you kind of can, you're just, you have more value to contribute to the collaboration, even though you're new. So yeah, knowing camera is very helpful. And that's where having an acting background actually helps me a lot coming in. I already knew kind of, and I'd been on set and understood the etiquette and kind of like, um, it, you always kind of have to know where the camera is, even if you're not looking at it. You almost like, they call it having like a feel for the camera. And is this punch going to read, or do I need to really cheat it for it to read? And that's where like having trust in your coordinator goes a long way too. But if you've never seen yourself fight on camera and they're telling you to miss by a foot, you're like, I'm not going to look stupid. You might question that. But if you've filmed yourself, you understand what the coordinator's really asking for, you'll know that they're just trying to make that punch land. And, they'll have you break the line because they're looking at the monitor, not you, um, long-winded, but yeah, but footage is important.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not long-winded at all. I'm thinking about a guy who does not know anything about stunts, and listening to you, he will definitely understand what you're trying to say and know what to expect. And what's with the, okay, when again, the safety comes first with everything, and most importantly, the star or the talent. I'm not talking about you, but the actors, which are there. So, and I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, if a fight scene happened, they can hit you, but you cannot hit them
100%.
accidentally.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that's why control is so like, that's why you got to do the reps, man. Because it's tempting when all the whole crew's looking at you and it's like the big fight. Everyone always goes a little faster than they thought they would. And as a stunt performer, I know what I signed up for, and I'm willing. A lot of people like contact, especially on like a stomach punch. It's like much easier to sell if I always tell my actors like, just squash the bug. That's like, just give me enough so I can sell it. Um, but with an actor, they don't train this way. They didn't sign up for that. They've got a lot more going on in their mind as far as like story and just, so the last thing they need is to feel concerned that you might hurt them. And that's like the opposite. Again, going back to the whole point of the job, my job is to support my actor. And safety is like number one on that. Everyone performs a lot better when they're confident. So if they slip and accidentally get you, boom, even in the face or whatever, just no big deal. I try to just really make them, because I don't want them to be unconfident then. But yeah, that's like a career death sentence. If you if any, you don't want anybody to get hurt, but especially if it's the talent, the actor, that's like, I'm trying to even imagine what that would feel like. That would just be like the worst day ever. So not ideal.
Okay. So
Uh,
when that happens, when there's a choreo, we'll talk about the following later. But how much time do you get to choreograph with the actor? And how much time do you spend just talking? Just talking. I'm not talking about for actual choreography. How much time do you think it's important to just talk to the person and make them feel comfortable?
that's the exact answer. We got almost no time. It varies per project, but yeah, I've in the beginning I remember thinking like, oh cool, like I'm gonna do a previs and we'll get it all dialed in. I'll probably feel really comfortable. You know, set will be just like the previs, right?
Mhm.
And that's I don't think I've ever had it go that way. You know, you plan and then you show up and the room's different, or the director decides that it looks better the other way, so we're gonna flip everything. Or like you're taller than they thought, and so now you got Josh's role and Josh has your, it's flexibility. Not even just your hips, those are important too, but flexibility in just being able to flow with things that aren't necessarily like you're not set up for success always. You know, they might spend 11 hours on dialogue, and then this giant fight, we get 45 minutes, at 3 a.m. to go do it. And there's no excuse. You got to go just perform. So, um, yeah, for choreo, you got to be ready. That's why doing it a bunch of times is helpful, because if it's like your fifth fight you've ever done, you're gonna be still thinking like, okay, what's my seventh beat? But if it's like if you've been doing this day in and day out for years, um, you can download a new fight really quick. So it's just one of those skills that it's kind of like memorizing your lines as an actor. I think everyone does it a little bit differently. Um, but yeah, it just yeah, it can change so much on the day. You can do the fight with the other stunt guy one way, and then they bring in the actor just because they want to see what they can do, and it can be like a totally like different energy being exchanged. And then you watch it on TV later, and they use a little bit of both. And one thing that I always just kind of set myself up for, mentally before I go in is just like they're probably not going to have enough time. They're probably not going to give you enough time, and it's probably going to be different, and I should expect that. And setting that expectation for myself. If it doesn't happen and it goes a little smoother, then that's cool. But if it goes the way it usually does, I'm ready then. Because you just can't have an excuse, you got to be kind of on point, ready to rock. Even if you've been sitting there cold for 11 hours in your wardrobe, you better go, behind the stage or something and warm back up again and drink a coffee and be ready to rock, because there's a lot of people counting on you delivering, especially when there's no time. Um, if you get it done in one take, that might have just saved like the overall budget. Like it's hard to say how much in overtime if they save a half hour at the end. So that means a lot to production, which means a lot to the coordinator, which, when you do a great job, they notice, then they tell your then your coordinator will like fist bump you and say like nice or whatever and barely give you any credit, but then they'll call you again. And that's how you know that you did your job that day.
Okay, I get it when the cameras are rolling, you're on a time, you're on a clock, and you have to do it in particular time. But is there a difference that you demand the pre-wiz, or do you have to do it on your own time? I'm not talking about when the shooting happens. I'm talking about the pre-wiz and all the build up and how important it is to talk to your stunt coordinator and to see yourself if this can be changed. And my follow-up would be a different question, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would say it's different for every job, different for every coordinator. Some of them have you really collaborating in the process, like they get really passionate too, and they'll tell you all on the phone like what you're gonna do. It's gonna be sick. I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that, and I'm thinking maybe even like a shot here, and they'll get like really detailed. And then other jobs, they'll be like, "Hey, are you available? Okay, cool. Just be here then." And what pads to pack, and um I've never had anybody not give me info to where I didn't feel prepared. If they're not telling me something, it's because I don't need to know it. And um, yeah, but there's ways to look out for yourself though. Always bring a jacket and shorts because you don't know. Um, And but yeah, you just gotta, again, I think the best trait you can possibly have is an ability to like have a really solid plan and then be ready to just throw it away and have a whole new, brand new solid plan. And then if you got to throw that one away and go back to the original, it's like, that's just, you know, there's so much more drama going on. Like, it's not, stunts is like huge and it's a really important part of my life and it's why I'm there. But when you go on a movie set or TV, you find out right away that it's like, we are a tiny percentage in this giant art project that is going to go wherever it goes and hopefully inspires many people. You know, it's kind of like looking at a mountain or something. It's like, okay, now I feel small in a really humble, like, you know, gratitude type of way. Um, so yeah. Again,
Okay.
sorry, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, 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 no. You answered my question. That's perfect. But how much? Okay. Uh, okay. For example, like let's assume I'm a new person and I'm on the set, and uh, I feel like this situation is a little bit dangerous for me, or I think this shot is not working. I don't know much. I'm new, stunt coordinator and everything, but I think if I do it that way, this will save everyone time and everything. Should I speak up or shut the hell up because I'm new?
It's man, that's these are good questions. Like, I want to say always speak up and like, you know, safety is number one. But like in reality, um, Steve Brown has been a really good mentor for me. And one thing that he talked about back in the day was just like reading between the lines. You know, like if somebody's on the phone, don't start a conversation with them. You apply that same logic to like, you should know a little bit about the coordinator you're working for. And some guys, you call them sir, and they're like, don't call me sir. Like, oh my God, you know, bro. And other guys are like, if you call me bro, I'm going to kill you. You better call me sir. And so it's just about kind of like understanding where you're at. And I mean, if it's something simple and you're being like a diva about it and you're like, I don't really know if I should like, would my character really like, no, like that's, you're overstepping. But if there's been times where we blocked out a scene where I had to fall and I kind of knew where my landing space was going to be. And they're like, okay, cool. Like everybody, we're going to set up the shot, go do whatever, take 10. And then when we come back, we're going to shoot it. And I would come back to my spot and check my area where I was supposed to land. And there's like an apple box or whatever, like a, you know, there's like a case there, a crate. So you have to advocate for yourself, but I try to only speak up if it's like the boy who cried wolf logic, you know?
Mm.
If I can handle it myself, I'm gonna handle it and not add to the coordinator's plate. So that way, if a situation ever does arise and I say something, the coordinator is like, well, Tay never complains ever. Like so this might actually be a thing. Um, but of course the rule of thumb is like, and I've heard this from multiple bosses. They all have different kind of like philosophies on it, but like wrecking especially, a lot of cool coordinators will be like, I never tell a guy how to fall because that's you. You know, it's up to you how much you really want to like gamble. You know, but other times it's like very intricate. They're like, we need it to be like, it's got to sync up with like a moment and it's got to be like bomb, bomb, bomb. And you have to, your left foot has to like shift to this angle on the bomb. So it's like ba ba bomb. And if you don't do that, we're not going to get the shot. Does that make sense? So it's like sometimes we're a big part of the collaboration, and then other times your part is be the one that can do this very intricate thing the first time. And
Okay.
how to for you. So
Okay. Speaking of the intricate things, like the camera is moving or something, explosions is happening behind you or whatever, and you have to do it bum bum bum, and you see something that is, and you don't have any takes. I don't think you have retakes on that thing, right? Uh, So, okay, again, my question is again, should we speak up in the sense like, okay, can you give me like 5 minutes to see what am I going on, you know,
yeah.
or something like, oh, I really don't want to say anything, but if I land, I will die or I will break my leg, and
Yeah.
even if I'm new.
Yeah, dude, it's really hard when you're new because you don't know these people and like you don't have as much leeway and you're kind of just determining your reputation. So you don't want to like have a good day, but you caused a little bit of drama and the coordinator now sees you as like a drama guy,
Hmm.
you know? So it's really tough. To me, I think it's just like emergency only. It's kind of like 911. You don't just dial that. But if something's really happening, don't hesitate. Um, I know that's like a tough answer, but it's kind of like a lot of things in this biz. Like you just gotta be genuine, true to you, and and just make the decision in the moment. I've never personally had to speak up. I've worked for all really good people, and even if they didn't tell me exactly what was going on, I just trusted. And looking back, they've all had my back. So, um, you know, and as performers too, you got to look out for each other. Like if you see somebody's gonna do their choreo and there's like a slippery spot right there, or like something's coming right there, I just think if you're present and aware in the moment, you know what to do. You just have to trust yourself.
Yeah. And yeah, I think you guys look out for each other as you said, like, okay, there's a slippery spot. Let me get it for you. Let me do something or whatever.
Like that's to me, you don't want to see anybody get hurt on set because it's bound to happen. We all know what this is, but if everyone's equally aware and looking out for it, I think we just cut down on unnecessary accidents. And you just that's like you got to look out for other people because you really need them to look out for you too. And we're all on the same team, no matter what anybody feels. If you're a true professional and you're on set that day, we're all going to be in this together on the screen at some point anyway. So you win, I win. I win, you win. We all have to have that mentality, I think. And when you have that, it really does, like, you know, it can spread. So if the coordinator has kind of that mentality, you really see it kind of filter out throughout everybody. But you should have kind of that, like, I think a good stunt performer naturally is inclined to be aware of their surroundings and want to be helpful. And we're all pretty physical. So, you know, um, not the, yeah, not that you should go in there trying to be a superhero or something, but like if things really go sideways, I think we're capable of, um, you know, helping.
Walking it off.
Yeah. Like if we're running out of time, it's like, okay, um, just be on point, hustle, hit your mark.
Okay. Okay, so my next question would be if, for example, if I am here as an 18-year-old, like 10 years ago, if I asked you that I watched a lot of Keanu Reeves movies and everything, and I was like, okay, Taylor, I want to break into the industry. I think I'm athletic, but I didn't do any sports. But I think I can do this. And could you point me in the right way? What would be your suggestion?
Absolutely. First, I would say good job for being 18. I didn't start till
Yeah.
I was. Um, yeah. So that's the earlier you can start, the better, obviously. Most people don't find the industry on their own unless they have some family or something until a little later. But I mean, tons of dudes I respect started later too. But so earlier is good, first of all. And I think I'm a little biased because sports was like, I've been an athlete my whole life, and that was a really big part of my life growing up. And the coach player relationship really is kind of like the coordinator performer relationship in a lot of ways. So having that it's not like a deal breaker, but it's helpful. And if you didn't have that, I would say just start training. That was the advice Oakley gave me. First thing, he was like, train, 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 never stop. And especially in the beginning, I think your training is where you start to kind of perform for people there. So I would, instead of slaying the whole dragon right away, like, I'm gonna work on a Keanu Reeves movie. It's like, okay, that might be like 7 years of like journey down the road. I would focus on the right, what can I do in the next 4 months to push it toward that goal. And Oakley said, train, train, train. So the best advice I would give to anybody in the beginning is where you train is very important, because there's a lot of different ways. There's, everyone's like, how do I throw a jab? And 10 different people will tell you 10 different variations of it, and a real jab versus like a film jab. And oh my God, like, do I want it to look real or do I want it to look like read on film? It's got to be both. Like, you'll learn all that stuff from someone who's training. And I think it's hard to like decide who to trust in the beginning because everyone's giving you so much info. So the thing that really worked well for me was finding a mentor, or actually like two mentors that understood kind of me, and we had like a personal relationship, where they understood kind of like how I'm wired and how to really get there. And then also someone with the credits that I would want to have. When I was looking at mentors in the beginning, I was like, okay, this guy is living a life. I used to say, like, Mike's who I want to be when I grow up. I mean, Storms and guys like that. It's like they have stories about movies that I watched when I was like a little kid, and they're still working to this day. So I think that is like finding the right person and then just listening to everything they say is like what I did. And I kind of use those two because they both have different perspectives, and they would verify each other's kind of advice. And that's the way I kind of played it. But yeah, do the Travis Wong thing, try to figure out a way to train 15 hours per week. And
Yeah.
in the beginning, social, like, training is where you meet people. So I would never leave training without at least, for when I started, what worked for me was I would show up with at least one question for whoever was running the training. Didn't matter if I wasn't curious. I would be thinking about it on the drive there sometimes. Like, I have to ask a question. So it's find your info about, like, coordinators out in the biz. Who coordinates that show? Oh, you know them from when you were on Buffy the Vampire Slayer back in the day. Like, start connecting people. And then the other thing that I would never leave training without was I would get a question answered, and then I would just get footage of myself and really like roast my performance. Like, try to really like find ways. If we trained on Monday and I goofed that up, when I looked at the footage again on Wednesday, it's like, okay, at least I fixed that this week. And if just start working on your list of stuff. Um, so yeah, where you train and who you train with. There's so many like tidbits of advice within each chunk of advice. We talked about it earlier, but instead of training everything all at the same time, kind of like half, don't chase one rabbit, or don't chase all the rabbits, chase one. I'm going to get really good at fighting in this next 3-month chunk of time. I'm training with this person privately, and I'm showing up to this choreo twice a week, and I got my 15 hours. I'll do the extra 3 at home on my own. If you hold yourself to that for like 3 months, you will have grown, and the people in your training will have noticed. And that's why it's really important in the beginning. Doesn't really matter where you start. You can have like a low level, no flexibility. But then if you come back 4 months later with the same instructor who's been watching you, and your level is up to pretty decent, still not great, but like you've grown, then
For someone who's new, like as I said, 18, they will be like, train where and train what? And someone who's just like no sports or no athleticism, but they are confident and they have the heart.
yeah.
What would
Well,
you say?
I would say from the minute you step into any gym, you're already training and creating your reputation. So skills are important, but like a lot of the things that people get hired to do, there's like a lot of people that could probably do it. So you have to have a threshold of skill. You have to have the expected abilities, but then beyond that, it comes down to your relationship with the coordinator, or if they don't know you, the references when they call. So if you're training with me for like 6 months and I see you growing and you're doing it, and then you hustle your way into a job opportunity and they can't call any of your former bosses because you're not working yet, but they see that you train with me and they kind of know me and they call me and they're like, how is he? You want them to be like, this guy, he's pretty new. He just started, but he's taking notes every week. Every time I tell him something, he comes back and it's fixed. And I know he could handle that like tiny little near miss that you're asking for. He just needs that experience. So I would say, yeah, click. They're going to call you and be like, see you on set. You're hired. So getting that first job is the hardest, and it really starts at training. So I think it's about finding a mentor you vibe with, listening to everything they say, and just sticking with them and realizing it goes back to that $10,000 and 10 pounds thing. Like, if you're not comfortable with the idea of not making a dime in stunts for like a year at least, probably more, unless you're really lucky. Um, then it's that's like the bare minimum of work it's going to take. So I think people understanding that right away and accepting that, you get all that from a mentor, because they'll tell you the truth. You know, if they're like, "Oh, you can work tomorrow," then they probably don't know what they're talking about. So creating that first connection is really good. And I would always come with a question and then leave having exchanged info with somebody. So like whoever you paired up with that day, you and me, we met at training, we did a little choreo, it was fun. At the end, I could be like, "Yo, like that was cool, man. Let's switch instas." And then we do. And then all of a sudden, 3 months down the road, they hear of a job where it's like, we need a guy with a beard to do this thing. If you DM me that and I submit, you know what I mean? That's like how you really create, and that's what the whole industry is built on. Little like relationships like that. So the quicker you can get in there, because it's impossible to quantify, but if I had to like put it, I would say like it takes about a year from when I first make contact with somebody and like meet them before I am like on set working for them. So if you start now, you can work next year. You know what I mean? If you wait and you're afraid and you don't know where to go and you kind of slow play and you wait 6 months, now you got to wait a year and 6 months to work. So I think just having an open, curious attitude and really listening to what your mentors are telling you, even if it's like counter to what you think, it's not going to look cool on Instagram. You know, I want to like post it because I want to like, I want to show this girl what I'm up to. And your mentor's gonna be like, "No, it's not good enough." If a coordinator looks at that, they're gonna judge you. And if you listen to that, even though if you just trust the people that know, that's the best advice I could possibly give. And one sneaky little thing, um, when I first started working, when I was trying to network with these people, I would finally get in a room with somebody that I respected, and we'd be, finally here. And all I got to do is say the right thing now. And they would ask me like, "Oh yeah, so do you know like so and so, or like I worked on this thing back in the day?" They'd be like trying to tell me a story. You know them? And that's when I'd be like, no, I don't know this like super legendary. I don't know who Jeremy Marinas is. Sorry." And then they immediately are like, "Oh, this guy's super green." So once I saw that happening, I was like, I need to educate myself. And it takes a long time to meet everybody in person, but like that's why social media is so awesome. And podcasts, man, like what we're doing right now. I listened to Travis Wong's podcast, Jamcast, where he would interview influential members of the action community. And and that's how I educated myself, because I would hear these guys talk. And then when I would meet them in person, I could be like, "Oh yeah, like is that like kind of like when you were on Tropic Thunder?" And they'd be like, "Dude, yeah, it was just like that." Like in creating that rapport, I think showing up to the training is how you educate yourself. And then just watch as much as you can from our industry. I think a lot of people come in and they don't mean to be disrespectful, but it comes off that way when they don't know their history, and they don't know who they're talking to right now. They just met Jeff Amata and they think he's like a grip or something.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? And like, and that's, you weren't born with the knowledge. So that's totally, and the cool ones will educate you and let you know and not hold it against you. But you can just educate yourself before and not run into that and save yourself a lot of green time and really cut down on like that amount of time it takes to be taken seriously. So yeah, if I had to break it into three things, it would say find a good training and a mentor, show up all the time and listen to everything they say, and then just plug your network as soon as possible and create that reputation for yourself.
Okay, if I'm imagining myself listening to it, and there would be someone like, okay, I can do all of those things. I can show up every day. I can learn about everything, but I'm really, really introvert. Taylor, I'm really introvert. I really don't know how to approach people, how to talk people. Do you have anything for that? What should I do exactly? Or just what should I do basically? What do we need to say?
Do it till you're not scared anymore, man.
Oh, wait.
The same things like swinging and missing on a job. In the beginning, you haven't booked yet. When they're like, "Hey, like I'm gonna take a chance on you," and you're like, "Sweet," and then they call again and they're like, "Ah, sorry, the project's not happening." That like guts you the first time, but then after like the 10th time of like having a close call on a job, you just understand that that's like what happens, and your mentor has had that happen to them more times than you've ever even worked. You know, my answer is just take action. You know, if you're really introverted, start small. Start talking to the people in your daily life. You know, before you talk to a coordinator, talk to somebody at your job. You know, like start breaking out of your comfort zone so that when you do meet somebody on set, you're not like a fan, like
Mm.
freaking out. You can just communicate like, "Hey, we're both here. We both got hired to be here. You're my coworker today, even though you're Keanu freaking Reeves."
Mm.
Um, People can feel that energy, and it's something again you can't just like buy, and you can't just like, think your way into. It comes on the journey through all the failures. You learn like through each of those small music videos or free previs or whatever. Every time you goofed up in the past, if you learn and that's the only time you make that mistake, by the time you get to the big show, y people just assume you've been doing it for a while. And if you let them kinda, um, think that about you, then you go to work. So yeah, it's I think some of the coolest people that I've met along the journey are, like, some of the most introverted, like,
Mm.
borderline awkward, you know, and, like, high level coordinator people, and then you see them perform, and that's their element, where they're all of a sudden the smoothest guy in the world, and they just know exactly what to do. It's with their physical movement. So, yeah, I wouldn't judge myself off of, like, skills that don't matter. Like, having a really cool conversation or, like, flirting with people and, like, being super charming is, like, not really what our industry is about. It's those aren't, like, the important factors. So, you need a little bit of social acumen, and, like, you can read all kinds of books about how to, like, kinda dynamic power dynamics and things, and knowing your place is really big, and then, um, like, I read sorry to just go off, but 48 Laws
It's
of
fine.
like a cool book that helped kinda put into perspective, like,
Okay.
knowing your place in the world, and then knowing you're not gonna stay there, but just, like, not constantly trying to fight, you know?
Mhm.
You can, like by just flowing with the natural time and place of it and being confident that you're doing the right things week in and week out and that you're growing, that's a much more, like, attractive, hireable inner state than, like, someone who's, like, not quite ready, but they wanna tell everybody that they're super ready.
Mhm.
That's, like, telling, and then but I feel like everyone has to kinda do that, and then you wonder why you're not working, and then you can, like, change, you know?
Mm.
And that's, like, the lesson.
Yeah, so most importantly, it's like your body should also tell the story that this guy has been at least putting the effort. If I'm hearing it correctly, right? It's more like your body should if your mouth doesn't, at least your body should tell like, okay, I have done this simple falling back on my back like 20 times.
Yeah.
At least it show that, so that if that's the case. And one more thing I want to mention, even though I sometimes don't like it.
Real
What's
quick
the role? What's I'm sorry, what?
real quick, just to piggyback, I think there's something really important on what you just said, just
Mm.
real quick. Yeah, like, your body is important, but it's the combination of the 2. It's like your reputation is, I think, arguably the most important, like, people wanna learn all these crazy things to stand out, but at the end of the day, the job is usually very simple. It's like your 4 basic punches, jab, cross, hook, upper, falling side, back, forward, like, then you're good. You have the skills, you know? And everything from there is just kinda like, um never I should just let you ask the question. I can't remember where I was going with that. But, yeah, um, mental it's like a mental oh, yeah, your mentor. That's like all these questions that you're asking me right now would be like your mentor would know what to do. They would know it immediately. If I'd went to Mike and was like, "Oh, yeah, I know I should have done that, but I'm, like, introverted." He would have been like, "Bro, boom, 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 boom. Here's what you do next time." And so, yeah, I would say, any question that's one of your questions you bring to training next time. You know, since I'm very introverted, how do I fix that?
Okay. One more thing. I'm not fan of it, but I think we should ask, for the sake of the audience, how much social media plays a role. There's a lot of people who are like really good, but they have no social media presence, and I don't know what to say. Where I'm going with this is more like, how much you should post and how much you should advertise on social media.
Yeah. Again, it's like the strategy of it. Like some people keep the same look all the time, and that's their strategy. I'm consistently like I'm the long haired 6 foot white guy. That's my brand. Other people switch it up all the time and are constantly like trying things. Same thing with social media, you know? I look at some people that I really admire that have been working like a lot, that are really well known in the industry, and I'll go to their social, and it's like cat videos and like a lake pic from like last summer, and nothing about stunts is on there.
Oh.
And so I think that like restraint of like not bragging is actually kind of like more powerful. Um, but then yeah, there's like you said, I know a ton of dudes that just never learned how to do computers and they kind of like resisted social media. And now they're not as known as they could be because they didn't want to like I think the smartest people that I've bumped into see it as a tool that's like
Mm.
important. And again, it's like a threshold. You don't have to have a billion followers, but like, especially in a visual medium like ours, that's the way we communicate. You know, I'm DMing people 24/7 about either like them helping me or me helping them. And it's just a really easy way to network when you do meet people. Um, but I think your work and your skill and like your real and your reputation and all that is like what you really should be focusing on. Like the social stuff and the cloud on there is awesome if that's what you're going for. If you want a bunch of followers and a bunch of activity on there and that's what you want, then you need to post all the time. But if you're trying to be like a working, respected performer, um, you gotta have all these other things. It's that's like way down on my list of priorities at this point. I just use it to communicate with people. But I've also heard of other people that get a ton of jobs from it. So, you know, if you've done something cool and you want to own that on there, then awesome. But I just think it's a bad move if you're like fabricating. If you're showing something that took you like 40 takes to do and it's still not that great, but then you post it and you want everybody to think that you're like on that level. Um, like lots of people can talk their way into the first job, but then you never work again.
Mm.
Like your body is like the actual proof. Like Noelle Kim told me it's like don't gild the lily is what she called it, gilding the lily. Like
Okay.
if you can do something, be honest. And if you can, be honest. Don't, you know, I've done one driving job. So if a coordinator hits me up for a job I really want, but it requires a lot of driving that I've never done, it's better for me to tell him that than to like get on set and crash into something.
Mm.
Sense?
Yeah, and yeah, and ruin your reputation forever.
Yeah. For one job, I just lost like whatever my potential trajectory might have been. So, and if I'm not right for it and it's like, nah, man, and I've only worked one, they're going to respect that honesty and be like, okay, I can't really call him for driving jobs right now, but he did one. So maybe later. And I know he can do this other skill in the next episode. So I'm going to call that homie in for something even better than, you know, I have a lot of faith in like what goes around comes around. And
Okay.
you don't have to like live or die on, you don't have to sell your soul for one job. It's not worth it. Um, your integrity and like what you're thinking about right before you go to bed at night is like way more important. And if you move with integrity and you still get what you want, that's like the win-win that I strive for. You know,
Yeah, and
like,
it's more again, it's more honest and it's more um clear. Like everyone knows what they know what they're buying basically, right?
100%. Yeah, you, no one wants to hire a liar, you know? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
But
that goes back into reputation.
just to talk about a different point, like if I'm someone who never has anything and I'm hungry for a job, I can fall on that trap of just lying to get a job. You know what I mean? And it's
Now,
I don't know.
I would just do what your mentor says, and then if they have a bunch of credits, they probably know coordinators that are currently hiring.
Hmm.
It I just think like work until your mentor says you're ready, and then once they say that, ask them who they know and get that recommendation. And then once they refer you in, when you clock in on set bed day, it's up to you. Like one of my first jobs, the guy found me on iStunt and we like showed up. I had to get my haircut. It was like my first kind of bigger like network TV job.
Mhm.
And we're getting lunch and meeting the other performers, but the coordinator wasn't there yet. And all of a sudden, like lunch is ending, we're getting ready to go to set. The nerves are starting to kick in, and this
Mhm.
coordinator pulls me aside. It's like, "Hey, you know, get
Mhm.
over here. I'm gonna talk to you." And I'm like, "Okay." Um, And he looked me right in the eye and he's like, "Hey man, I never hire people I don't know. And I found you on iStunt. It was between you and another guy. You were like a better match. So I just want to let you know I'm taking a chance on you." And then he like walked away. And then I got in the van. I'll see you on set. And I got in the van. And basically he was saying like, "Don't screw this up," you know.
Yeah.
And I had to like take a deep breath and go perform it. And I did well. And he ended up calling me later that night and telling me like, "Outstanding, you know, like, thank you for being part of our crew. Like, you made everybody look good." And he called me back and I work for him now. So it's like getting that first job. Everyone really focuses on getting the job, but like if you get it in some sleazy, snaky, backhanded way and you're not really ready for what you got, like the only reason that worked out for me is because I was like who I said I was and was able to do what he was asking for. So when he kind of like man to man me right before, it of course like shook me, but it didn't throw me off. And you got to see what I was really made of. And that's way more than anything my reel could ever tell him.
Mm.
So in my experience, the more real you are, they recognize that. And if you can like put down what you're putting out, if your feet can do what your mouth says they can, that's what really matters to people. So social media for a lot of it can just be noise. Um, and I don't know how effective it is at really like getting the attention you want, like the true respect from the people who know what they're looking at. You know, you might have a bunch of fans
Mm.
that don't know anything about stunts that think you're killing it, but like, do you want to appear to be a stunt performer or do you want to go do some freaking stunts? It's kind of the question I have for social media.
But if I'm thinking about it more and more, okay, what would be the more easy way to sell myself? It's the reels, right? And I
What did
wouldn't
you?
have to.
Yeah, and just how you train, how you perform in training. If they're like, okay, we're doing another 8-beat choreo and it takes you an hour to learn it, just like it did last week, you're not ready. But if they come to you and you're the best one in class, and then they're like, okay, cool, we had an odd number. This person knows the other side or knows your side, but they don't know the other side. Can you switch? And then you just show them that you know both sides, like no problem. That's like it's little things that everyone's always watching, you know? Are you super cool to everybody when the coordinator's around? And then as soon as they're gone, you're like a dick?
Oh, okay,
You know? Like it's
okay.
all that. So the best advice I would give is just listen a lot in the early stages and show people that you listened, and then they'll help you forever. But if you ignore good advice, there's too many people, it's too competitive,
Mm.
you know, eh, just harsh reality.
I had one more question regarding the start. We talked about the classes and everything. Uh, okay, let me ask you a question that is more fitting for Google search. But what gyms and what classes would you suggest for a young performer who is just moved into USA? Not USA or LA.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I have a really good one. So kind of like I call it like it's pretty much ground zero. There's a handful of stunt gyms in LA and across America that
Mm.
you'll get really good instruction at. But I personally send most new people to Jam because they do like a week-long intensive every couple months. And it's good because Travis knows what he's talking about and you learn the basics, and but it's really beneficial for a new person because that's where you meet everybody. There's like people of all levels that have been doing it for some just brand new, some for a couple years, some for a lot of years. So that week, every time I did the jam week, I met some people that led me down some rabbit holes, um, to people I either wanted to meet or training that helped me. In addition to, you learn a lot that week just about like what it is, what the skills you should be focusing are. They go in, the basic punches and the recs and the choreo. And, unless you're like a specialist, that's pretty much what the job is. So going into that as like a student is good, but going into it as like if you've been training for a while, you're auditioning for Travis Wong and all those guys at Jam who all coordinate and they all know everybody. So if you really stand out at the intensive, you might have a job next week. So
Mm.
That's like I would to Google Map it, start at Jam, and it doesn't even have to be intensive. If you go to Open Gym, you will meet people, um, switch info, and just go from there. And everyone was new at some point. I think the rule of thumb that I see is if you want help and you're like the new person, it's kind of like customary for me to like ask you. Like a lot of people, if you just keep to yourself, they're not going to offer to help you. But if you introduce yourself and kind of are honest, people will really help you and get you the info you need or recommend something or tell you how to do this skill a little bit better. Or the industry is really well known for how generous people can be in that way on the train come up. So yeah, it's all the stuff we talked about, networking and training and mentor. You can meet all those people at Jam.
Okay. And my second question would be, uh, okay, we okay, when is the limit of saying no to a job? Like, when is a good time to say no? For example, I'm not talking about the major movies because I'm fairly certain when you start, you don't get paid at all, right? But
Yeah.
when is a good time to say no? Like, I cannot do it, even though I know. I just when is the good time to say no, basically?
Yeah. That's again, that's something that will like it changes over time. Like in the beginning, when you don't have any footage and you need a reel, you should be volunteering to go do a bunch of free fights and like because that's how you're gonna get your footage. You'll know when you get to a level. Once you join the union and you start working on life just inevitably kind of changes. So your strategy has to change too. Um I think it's one of those things where you know it when you're there. It's like whether or not you're getting the most out of a training or not, if you're being really honest with yourself. And if you're like a big fish in a small pond, if you've been going to this place and you know everybody and you're super comfortable and you're not growing anymore, that would be a good time to like reevaluate and maybe switch gears or but again, I would go straight to my mentor, in that
Mhm.
situation. I'd be like, okay, I was doing this and it worked in that time. Now things are a little different. What should I focus on? And a good mentor will take their knowledge of you and their knowledge of the industry and just do whatever they say, man. Don't even question. Just yes, sir.
Mm,
Therefore,
okay. Okay, that's a good advice. And what is the good way to uh okay, my question is that it's a little bit odd question, but it's more about like how to choose a correct mentor, right? And obviously you search it on the web or anything, you ask around who should I coach with and who should be my mentor. But what would be the way to like, okay, I do car stuff
yeah,
and I should find them, and how easy, I know they're really helpful people, but how is to get them to mentor you basically?
yeah. Um, well, first of all, you gotta meet people, and
Mm,
that comes from, you know, you don't have to pick like the perfect training place. Like, I'd rather you go somewhere that doesn't work for you than not go anywhere at all.
mm,
Like, you just go somewhere and it's not great, but whatever. You meet somebody, they might, if you ask them that question, they might be like, "Oh yeah, I like know of another training." And like I met Amy Baldwin at the end of my first jam intensive, and we were just kind of switching info on the last day. And I asked her, I was like, this fight choreo stuff's cool. I suck at it. How
mm,
do I do what we just did this whole week? Like, I want to do it more, basically. And she was like, "Oh yeah, Tim Storms has like a really chill choreo training every week down in Mar Vista." And she got me to go to that. And that's where I met Tim, who ended up being one of my mentors. So it's like just yeah, just talk to people.
mm.
And when you're training together, we're like physical and you can't help but every time I finish a training when we're all sweaty and you just put in some work together, there's a good vibe there.
Mm.
So yeah, I would just a lot of it is the people you put yourself around. If they're working and they've got credits or they're kind of like where you want to be a year from now or 10 years from now, like That's what I look for when I'm looking into a mentor. If somebody's got a trait that I recognize in them that I would want for myself, um, I just try to be around them as much as possible. And those people tend to lead you where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good amount of info we got for someone who's thinking about starting it new. Okay, any movie recommendations or any book recommendations or podcast? Well, like you already mentioned, Travis, but yeah.
I would say Jamcast for overall education. And if we get really specific, there's the Steve Brown episode. I send that to people all the time because there's a section in there where Travis asks him, like, from a coordinator's perspective, like, how would you all this stuff that we just talked about, basically.
Mm.
And Steve, who has 10 times the experience and credibility of me, really, he runs through what I would say is like, yeah, that's like what it is. So Jamcast, Steve Brown episode specifically. Um, and then just I would if you don't have IMDb Pro and you're a new performer, it costs money, but sign up for that because that's like it's way different than the free IMDb. And that is where you really can like look up somebody. And when you're starting to hustle, one way I've always stood out is I kind of know a little bit about the person that I'm talking to. So I know kind of which questions to ask them. And I would just for overall knowledge, every time I watch something, or not as much anymore, but in the beginning when I was developing this habit, I would like watch an episode of something and see somebody fall down. I'd be like, okay, that's for sure a stunt on that 70s show or whatever. Like that girl stunted. And then I'll look it up on IMDb Pro and be like, oh, sweet. Larry Rosenthal coordinated that back in the day. And I know Larry from like around. That's pretty cool. And Jane Austen was the performer. Sweet. She must be like pretty cool. And then like 6 months later, I bumped into Jane on set and she's like a legend. And I actually knew who she was and was able to like thank her for the work that she did and make an impression. So knowledge is power, man. Like if you're ever bored sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, wondering why your stunt career is not happening, like either get up and start shadowboxing or um watch something, just keep filling your brain with the knowledge and people will be able to tell when they meet you. They'll be like, this guy's brand new, he doesn't know anything. Or they'll be like, oh man, he's actually like a student of the game. And even though he is new, I want to help him.
Okay. So it's more about like know what you're getting into, basically, right? Know the people around you, like make to show that you really care. Basically, it's like you really care, right?
To me, it's like obvious because I mean, it's just wild to like take somebody you are talking to and you know them and it's like a human on earth, they're not like us, they're just a normal person. And then to like see them up on your screen doing something that like people love, um it's I don't know, to me that always really motivated me. And knowing kind of like the history can help you understand your place in it. And um yeah, like there's just stunts in everything. That's something I never realized until I started pursuing it. Like commercials, even like there's just tons of, and the people that did it, you might have just been sweating on them at Jam like the day before. And to me, that's like really cool. These people that have done things are still around in our community and are just as willing to like give you a note as anybody. It's just if you don't know them, you can't understand that though. So I think just being a student of the game and the more you show up, the more you naturally kind of soak it in. But by listening to like Travis's podcast or like watching, knowing, meeting a coordinator at Jam or something, it's like, oh, sweet, I just met, Wayne Dalglish. And then looking him up on IMDb and watching a couple movies he did. Like to me, that's like, um, rather than like specific recommendations, I would utilize that website and research the people that like pertain to me, because everybody's path is a little bit different on this journey, but it can really bring it close to home when somebody that as like a normal human was like somebody huge on Captain America. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, so do that for yourself and really like if you're gonna do this life, commit to the lifestyle, because you're gonna have to eventually.
Uh,
Or so
yeah, apart from that, any other websites? I know about Handshake, but I'm talking about other websites that you should also sign up for apart from IMDb Pro.
yeah. I would say focus way less on websites and more on training in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's dude, stunts is so cool because
Mm.
even though there isn't like a roadmap, there isn't there's a thing called the British Stunt Register where they
Mm.
do over in London, they have like it's like college basically. You have to like pass falling 101 and then high fall, you have to do all these skills before you can work. And I used to be jealous of that because I was like, man, that must be nice to have like a roadmap.
Mm.
But it's we're way more like Eastern philosophy here, where just by doing the things necessary to even be eligible for the job, you kind of have to like you learn so much about performance by putting together your first reel. And it's usually like a crap reel, the first one for anybody. But the lessons you learned that went into it and the money you invested it into it, like those are the real lessons. And it's like I'm never gonna waste money on that again because it didn't really matter. And now And um so just the process of getting SAG, the process of getting your reel, the process of finding a mentor, all of those, if you can do them, you've already learned the lesson, you know?
Okay, so we talked a lot about stunt coordinators and how much of a role they play and how much of a role other people play in your safety. Um, Apart from that, I just it's a weird pivot, but what about how much do you talk to the camera guys or directors, or you don't talk to them at all?
That is again, it's like situational. My first ever job, I was working for Brian Christensen and we're sitting in a golf cart waiting to go up. And he gave me some advice I'll never forget. He was like, look, man, you're gonna hear a lot of voices when we're up there. You're gonna hear a lot. Just listen to mine. All right. And so that's kind of the philosophy that I've held on to. Like some people will say it's a don't speak unless spoken to type of vibe. Other people like to be a little more loose on set and kind of, you know, be part of the community of it. And that's fine, but you have to just be on point and deliver. There's no worse look than goofing around with makeup or whatever and cracking jokes and then not being able to do your job. So as long as it doesn't distract from the focus, well, one of my favorite things on set is to create relationships with the crew and everybody I've ever doubled. We end up being friends in the end, and it can be a really special part of it, but it just can't overtake the job at hand. And some days are heavier than others, Sometimes you are sitting around for a lot. So if you're that guy on your phone the whole time, not talking to anybody, that's not great. So I think whenever someone's working, I let them do their job. But if we're all kind of there together, it's good um, to just hear how everyone else is doing and your overall set etiquette and your vibe on set will improve the more you just kind of reach out to others. And yeah, but it just depends. Some sets it's like, no, you do not talk. Another one, more of a collab, where you really are that you're talking to the camera guy where he's like, okay, like, we're figuring it out together. It's like if you throw the punch this way, maybe I'll move the camera over here. Okay, no, do it a little bit the other way. Okay, no, go back to the first way. And you really are collabing. So it's fun when you kind of can tap into that, but I think my philosophy is I have to be given the green light first. Um, Otherwise, I just keep the focus on my coordinator that day. And um, yeah, when they say jump, we say how high.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good philosophy, I guess. And so, well, you know all of this by working a lot and acquiring a lot of experience. But if let's say a young guy comes up to you and be like, "I don't want to look stupid and I want to keep working. Apart from my jumping and wrecking and everything, do you suggest me anything, or what would you say?"
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I am new. I'm like, I haven't been doing this for just since COVID. So
Hmm.
been fortunate to gain some really cool experience so far. And like one day on set might as well be like 6 months of training. There's just no substitute. Um, and that's why I think working on like when the strike happened a couple years ago, that was a really big bummer because everyone was like, I'm ready to work, now I can't. But I just tried to do as many small projects as I could in that time. And that's where you'd really learn kind of the difference between this set versus that set and just how to be overall. And I found that it sucks. This is like advice. In the beginning, I would have been begging for somebody to like answer this question. I was looking for it too. But the answer is, it just always depends on the situation. Um, just you just have to be really good. I think that the number one thing that can keep you from appearing green is it's like a fine balance between being on point but not being try hard, if that makes sense. Like if you were the coordinator right now and I was just like, hey, like I'm here for you. Can I move a pad? Like, okay, cool, not yet. All right. What about now? Can I move a pad right now? Like, you wouldn't want to. I just try to put myself in their shoes. It's like I wouldn't want to work with that. But if you were the coordinator and I was just chilling right here with you out of the corner of my eye, and then I saw you like looking for something, and I was like, oh, I got your pad right here, sir. The thing that you didn't even say you needed yet, but I got it. That stands out in a way different way. So yeah, it's like you have to be ready to help, but not always kind of just you know
Be in their
time.
space.
It's really, yeah, time and place. Like the opportunity will come. There will be a time where something needs moved and there's no one else there, or like if you're looking for it, there will be a time when like you know somebody needs just anything. And I think when I'm on set, I just try to be as present as possible. I'm off my phone. Um, and when you're just present, you naturally start to read the energy of you can tell if that group of people over there is kind of stressed out right now, or if they're like, if it went really well and we're like ahead of schedule, you start to kind of read the room a little bit. And if you do that and you're courageous enough to step forward when your time comes, to me, that's, um, you don't want to be constantly like, it sucks because in the beginning, you have to hustle. You have to tell everybody, I do stunts, your neighbor, whatever, because you never know where that first opportunity is going to come from. So you really have to advocate for yourself, which is hard for most of us because we're kind of like, trained to be humble and work really hard. So to like put yourself out there can be tough. But then at a certain point, it's more powerful to just let your work speak for itself and to just be that guy and not talk about it. So yeah, it's just like everything else in this industry. Like one time it'll work and the next time it'll get you fired. There's like things that there's things that carry over always. Always be respectful, carry yourself with humility, be ready to work really hard, be on point. But eh, you know, it, I can't really plan on which moment I'm gonna do that in on my way to set. It's just like I would say the best advice I'd give to somebody new is just listen to the people that have done it before. I've been fortunate on, especially early, my first handful of jobs, I knew somebody from outside from training that was also at work that day. So I just kind of like followed what they did. But yeah, like being on set is an experience. And when you're working on smaller projects, you're allowed to kind of goof up and learn. So that's why it's nice to not get thrown to like the great, like the biggest feature film of the year as your first job. It can be a blessing, but can also be a lot. So 2 ears, one mouth is kind of like the best philosophy. I try to really learn um more than I talk on set. Uh
Yeah.
and if you approach it with that mentality of that kind of like humble student mindset, it's amazing how many people really go out of their way to like figure out what you're about. And then, you know, they all wish that somebody would have done that for them in the beginning too. So that this industry, for me at least, is really proven to be one where people throw the rope back in and they're willing to give you some game that they had to figure out on their own. You know, there's yeah, there's just so much to learn that if you're gonna do it on your own, it would take a lifetime. But we've got all these people on set any given day. I might have like 2 years of experience, but the guy right next to me's got like 22 years, and the guy across from him's got like 25, and the coordinator's got like 38. So between all of us, we're coming up on like 100 years of collective experience. Um, And even though I'm not contributing a lot of that at that moment, being a part of that, I think grows, you know, your personal experience. So I'm really fortunate to be in a part of my career right now where I'm getting some of these opportunities to work with really high level people. I'm like the newest guy at every job. Um, and it's challenging because you don't have a reputation to fall back on yet. You have to be really like, you have to put your best foot forward all the time and be the guy. But you just, like I said, you can learn so much more in an on-set environment than you learn in training too. It's just not the same.
Okay. The advice that I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's much more like learning, always be ready to learn,
Yes.
if I'm getting. The second one is be
Yeah.
present all the time. And the third, uh, I guess it's much more to find, read the room, technically.
If
Right?
I, yes, if I could sum it up, you just did. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly. Kind of like do your best in the situation and know that those opportunities are coming. You don't need to meet everybody on set that day and like, have a job lined up from every single maybe person that could coordinate. Like I, I'm in place. It's always worked best for me when I just was myself and let those things come to me. And when you're ready, people do come to you, you know,
Yeah.
so you know. So
Okay. Okay. This one I was saving. And by the way, this shows that I'm really listening to you. Okay. I summed it up nicely. Okay. But I was waiting for it. But I just want to know much about the quote unquote dangerous stunts which are falling or car stunt. I'm not sure if you're that's your specialty. If it is, it's great. If not, it's fine. I think you know about it more. But about those, how much they're different and how much of the risk and how much of an important, well, training is always important, as you said, but how much of other factors that we need to look forward to?
yeah, yeah. I've only worked one driving job so far, so I would not consider. That's a brand new world for me, and it's awesome. But I've got a long way to learn before I would consider myself a driver. Wrecking, different story. I've done some stuff already. And I would say my like big thing that got me going, it's called a flat back. It's where you you just fall flat on your back.
Okay.
um, and it's just something I've been working on my whole life without even knowing. I was a high jumper coming up, and when I first started pursuing stunts, I was training with Mike Chat, and we were sitting I was sitting right here. We were doing a Zoom, and he was trying to figure out my background so that he could like figure out how to strategize my, you know, depending on. I think a lot of people like to train everything, and then they don't really grow. They grow like an inch a year in everything. But if you focus on like the important things, you might grow like 6 inches in a year, and then other things start to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but my question or anyone else's question would be like, how would I know this is my thing? You know, you have to try everything and then see what's my thing. You know what I mean?
Totally. I would. I always tell people look at your background, and people think like, oh, I've never done stunts. I don't have anything. I'm not a black belt. But everyone starts from somewhere, and that's what Mike told me. He was like, "What did you do though? What were you really good at back in the day?" And my thing was jumping and then falling onto a mat, which is basically what a lot of wrecking is. And so I met up with him, and we were running through everything, starting low on like soft surfaces and building it up. And that was when he figured out that I could flat back, which I felt like Harry Potter, I didn't like know that I had this like thing, and then all of a sudden someone's like, "Here, yeah, you had like an invisibility cloak this whole time." Like flatback is like a marketable, well used skill in our industry, and it opened a lot of doors for me. So I would just say like look back to what you really enjoyed when you were a kid, probably, um, and channel whatever that athletic endeavor was, whether it was like swimming or softball, or maybe you used to go like sailboat riding with your family or dirt biking. Like if you can resurrect that part of your life, that's probably where your specialty is going to lie. And a lot of like people come from martial arts, so they're like fight forward right away. But I was a football guy and a high jumper, so falling down was like my natural skill. And luckily there's a big place for that in our industry.
Okay. So, We had two questions. First, what's a flatbacker, in a sense? Like, is it when you get shot or you jump high? Well, what is it? What is it exactly? I just want to know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways that it can happen. But I would say just picture like a slip and fall. Like you're walking down the street and then whoop, you slip, your feet come up and you land kind of like,
Yeah, on your back.
yeah, just straight back. Boom. Which is it's like a high jump where you miss the mat. So that's why I was good at it. I had done that a million times growing up without even thinking about it. Um, and then the other like most falls kind of have like there's a way to make it safer without it. It looks a lot gnarlier than it really is. And we do that from like shoulder rolls a lot of the time. So you'll flip at the last second and kind of like land here and then roll your way through it, like Sonic the Hedgehog. Um,
Mm.
so football was perfect for that because when you're diving with the ball and the dude's about to hit you,
Yeah.
that's
Oh.
a natural move. So I'm really good at finding my pad, which
Mhm.
is these. And that was just my background, like I meet so many people. I pull wires for Tim Storms at Action Planet, and I meet like dancers and gymnasts that have like insane, their flexibility is like 10 times better than me. Um, but they can't flat back. So it's like everyone's got their superpower. And but yeah, flat back has been good for me.
Mm. Okay. Yep. So, question would be like, again, sorry to say this, but I still didn't get what exactly. So, when someone is calling you for flat backing, what they say, or you're gonna take a hit, or they just say you're just gonna flat back, or they're gonna say you have to sell a gunshot, or
Yeah.
um,
They usually kind of will tell you about the scene. And we get the like the dailies, sides or whatever in our
Mm.
trailer. Even if they don't tell me, I can kind of see like, and that's a really good question too, because not everything is meant to be like to the moon, like the biggest flat back ever.
Mm.
If it's like a slip and fall, sometimes going too big can look comedic in like a really serious moment. So that's like a good one where you can have a collaboration on set with the director, with your coordinator, looking for kind of what they want. And yeah, I can just show you.
Okay.
I'll do this like over and over. Sorry, I spilled coffee on my shirt. Oh, but like if that's camera, I'll do like one of these. Like, what about right here? You
Oh.
know, and they'll be like, that might be a little high, and I'll be like, hey, well, like, what about like if I did that? And I'm just kind of like demoing for them in the lens what they're looking for. So if they approve one of those, then I can do it the way they want. It's I don't really to me it's like not about how big the fall is or it's can I give the director what they want. When they look in the monitor after we do it and they're watching playback, first of all, if everyone else is like, "Ooh, that's like I usually love that."
Okay.
But if the director looks at it and they're like, "Yeah, that's like, moving on," then I know I did my job. But yeah, I mean, that's a totally different like a slip and fall is a completely different story than like taking a gunshot to the head and falling back or like getting hit by like a clothesline. And technically all of those you're falling to your back, but you know what I mean? That it's like snowflakes. Every wreck is its own little thing. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. How many times do you do wire work, or have you done wire work at all as of now? Okay.
Yeah. I've done it.
Is it the same beast, or is it something else? Is it just core?
Oh, it's way different. It's awesome though. Wires are cool. Uh, there's a lot less chance of you getting hurt, at least. Well, it depends on the gag, but normally the hardest part about wires is just being in the vest all day.
Hmm.
It's kind of uncomfortable, but that's like wires is probably one of my favorite things because there's nothing, you just kind of like go for the ride and tuck your chin and
Hmm.
getting yanked like that is a sensation that like I don't get a lot in my day-to-day life. So taking a ratchet is like really fun. Uh, but for every, just ratchet wreck that's like not a big deal, there's like, crazy acrobatic, like, Matrix type, and wires is its own kind of like thing to be conquered. There's so many different levels to it. But yeah, pulling for Tim has helped a lot me to just understand the overall concept behind it And if you're ever lucky enough to get yanked on set, you kind of know what it's like from the rigger's perspective too. So again, I can like put myself in their shoes and not be, I can just help me help them, which in turn helps me. Cause if anybody ever asks them, they'll be like, yeah, Tay flies really well. He's easy to work with. And that's, if you can get people talking like you about, or talking like that about you, in this industry, that really means something. So
Okay.
yeah,
What's most of it is by connections and how good of a reputation you have, I'm assuming, right?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
well, that just kind of goes back to wrecking too. Like, so our current generation, stunts is a relatively new, industry, it really didn't get invented till like the 70s 80s, and it's been like growing as we go. Stunt actor used to not be a thing, and now it's like a really big thing. And one thing that people complain about my generation that kind of bothers me is that they'll say that we're all soft, all these new kids,
Mhm.
safety is like taken over and everyone's too soft. And I just, yeah, it's one of those again where it's like in the middle. Like, safety obviously is really important, but one of the most important things when it comes to wrecking is you got to sell it. And being considered soft is like not, I would never want anyone to, you know, consider me like that. So yeah, it's kind of like, that's why you train hard. You should be doing more in the gym than they ever ask you to do on set. Um,
Okay.
and yeah,
Speaking of safety, okay, this is not one of those desk job that you just sit there and pray to God nothing happens, and your insurance, if something happens, insurance will cover it. But if we are thinking about the practical stuff, you have to look like you got hurt, and sometimes you do, right?
yeah, yeah,
And since if my livelihood is just stunts, and if I get hurt, and I will have to sit for like 3 months or something, that's really bad. You know what I mean? So, what do you suggest for that? Just be ready for it, or do something financial, or
yeah.
I don't know what I'm asking here, but I'm just yeah.
No, I understand. And yeah, that's a real concern. I would just say protect your body, and get in front of it. A lot of things are preventative. That was my dad of all people was the most worried when I started doing stunts. He was like, I don't know, like getting hurt for money, like, I don't know, man. Um, but then I looked around at like all the guys that were, 45, 50 still doing stunts, and I looked at kind of like their day to day. Um, and they're in like the best shape out of anybody I know. So I really do think it starts with training. If you keep your body in a certain condition, you retain that level of resilience, and things happen. But there's a difference between like needing stitches and needing like back surgery, blowing out your Achilles versus like taking having a bruise. Um, what we do, I mean, if going back to the softness thing, like half the time, if you make it really safe, it's not a stunt anymore. It's like, what am I even doing here? So inherently, the whole reason we're there is because it's too dangerous for a normal person to do it at the end of the day. So people say it's like crazy, but it's more of like a calculated crazy. You want to like set everything up to where your chances of getting hurt are as small as possible, while also understanding there's always going to be some kind of chance. There just has to be. You know, you can fall on the pad the wrong way and throw your neck out on a 8-incher. There's just that's like part of it. So I think the more that I can prepare myself, like Ted Bundy, just fall into a softer surface 15 times first, so that when I fall on the hard one once, I can make it. That's been the method that I've been doing. And then recovery, of course, is huge. Everyone finds their way of like bouncing back quicker. Um, and it's kind of like sports. There's a difference between being hurt and being injured. If you're doing it right and you've been working, you're going to be a little sore. That's way different than something that takes you out. But yeah, eh, our industry is really cool too, because if you are out for an extended amount of time, the Tours Foundation and just friends and people within the industry all have each other's back. Because again, it's me today, you tomorrow. Like, I'm gonna have your back 6 years from now when you get hurt because you had mine today. Type of that's like I think the mentality that I at least vibe with within our industry.
Okay, a follow-up question on recovery and everything. How much, okay, let me just ask it, like how much muscle mass should we build, or we just focus on getting big, or is it much more about the stamina, or much more about the recovery, I should get more rest, or is it I don't think it's just one thing, that just practice, 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 but it's also the entirety of the things, multitude of factors. How was your experience with that? Like, what are you thinking about more when you think about your recovery and your conditioning?
Yeah, good question. It changes like throughout your career. Like in the beginning, before I ever worked, before anyone knew who I was, I went to training, and to me, that was like my audition. I'm going hard, not in like a hectic, crazy, uncontrollable way, but I'm gonna do my best and like push my body to the absolute limit at this training. And taking every random like film, like if somebody needs a music video, being like, yes, like I'll do a stair fall for free. I don't care. $50, whatever. You need footage, you need experience. And then once you start working, I've missed out on jobs before because I got hurt or like, got a black eye on a smaller project that I wanted to be a part of, but I probably shouldn't have gone as hard on. I could have played my cards better and then I would have been available. And that really sucks to you wait, weeks and months sometimes to get this call, and then you get the call and you got to be like, sorry, uh, my face isn't ready. I got to miss this chance. So I had to learn that lesson. Um, but yeah, I never wanted to be that guy in the beginning that was like, oh, I can't go to training. I need to recover. It's like, dude, until I'm booking stunts, like I'm going to training. Um, And I think that's a good temperament to have until you start working, and then it's like, okay, you need to be available for, what's all this for at the end of the day. So yeah, that is like a fine line to walk of like, it can be really easy sometimes if you're not feeling like if it's cold out and you're sore and the training is like 45 minutes away and you're like, maybe I should like rest my neck for another day. I want to be ready. You got to really be honest with yourself and be like, no, dude, like, and then on the same side too, it's like, oh, I really love this training. I like to go every week, but like I can feel my like quad. This isn't normal. Are you still gonna go and throw these same kicks and just force it and make it worse? It's like, yeah, it's like a weekly kind of discussion I have with myself. And I just try to stay as healthy as possible so I don't have to worry about that.
Okay, so more like listen to your body. And if your body is screaming at you like, oh, please rest. So just rest at that day.
Yeah, but your body will scream at you. So like,
Mm.
yeah, you gotta like know when to listen. And I mean, you just gotta be smart, like maybe that smaller job isn't worth it if you're kind of messed up. And or maybe it is if you're a little messed up, but maybe you can meet somebody there that changes your whole trajectory. Like, so I've always been kind of like that psycho coach in the back of my head where it's like, no, I don't care how tired you are, you better go. So recovery has been the harder part for me. But you just, yeah, control you can control, I would say. I get 8 hours of sleep every night. I freaking track it because I know I perform better. And that might seem like, kind of like uh to the average person who doesn't do that, that might seem like a lot. But to me, it's like an easy small thing I can do to allow me to do what I really love to do more and more often. So it's yeah, you gotta be honest with yourself. And really, it's about knowing yourself. If you know that you're kind of inclined to chill, you better just show up at the training. And if you know that you're kind of a trainaholic, um, you can get further sometimes by just networking. And it's yeah, or resting. So just know thyself. I'm giving you a lot of these like weird like monk answers, like it's both. No, no.
No, 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 it's fine. It makes sense. It's something it's same as any other training, right? The lifting weights is as important as eating good and taking rest, right? 8 hours of sleep, 1 or 2 gallons of water and yada yada yada. But that's good. And okay, speaking of Mitch, how much of it is the mental game?
Tons, dude. All. Um, they have a sign at 87 North that says everything you want is on the other side of fear. And when I was training with Mike, we would bow in, and I would just look at that neon sign, and it's so freaking true, dude. Like, I was a little nervous to do this. I've never done a podcast before. So, fear that immediately told me like I have to. So I think, yeah, one of the things that I don't agree with that I think a lot of people subscribe to in society is that we have like a fixed, like you just are the way you are, right? Like I was born this way. I'm just this way. And I just think mindset is so malleable. You can get to the point where you don't want that ice cream. You would rather have a sweet potato. Like you can retrain things. And so I've just tried to make it to where the things that I know will push my career forward are the things that I am naturally kind of like inclined to do. And say yes and then figure it out later. Commit and then figure out your schedule, like
Okay.
it really is kind of like a lifestyle. And at least in the beginning, I mean, it's like the dream life once you're established, because then they just call you and you fly somewhere and you do a cool stunt and then it comes out and all your friends are hyped and then you just keep doing that. Like, and I've never experienced that, but that's to me like looks like a great life and that's what I'm going for. But in the beginning, it's more of just like saying yes to everything and um and really like committing, driving 2 hours just on the off chance that you might meet this person. Like you have to really like invest in yourself. Um And I think once you do that, the mentality, once you see it work, um, then it's the right life for you. And it's not easy for a reason, like there's brick walls in this industry for a reason. It's like if you have a backup plan, everything is designed to kind of like make you want to go there. And if you don't have a backup plan, you'll deal with it and you'll grow. And then, yeah, that's just my outlook on it, at least.
But if you, okay, there's two things. One I wanted to mention, I think it's a cop out when people say, I'm born this way, I cannot change, and yada, yada, yada. It's a cop out. You can change all the time, unless there's something extremely, do you have cancer or something? That's a different issue, but I think it's a cop out. And the second thing is that I wanted to ask or a comment or something. If I'm afraid to do it and I still do it, that's a win, even if I fail,
Yes.
you know?
Well, dude, yeah, it's just like the gym. Like, if you're adding 5 pounds every week, that means you're growing. And you can, if you're really honest with yourself, I mean, I like to do it by week. There's little weekly goals to where am I pushing my career forward? Like, did I send a hustle email this week? Did I meet somebody new this week? Did I, you know, update my profiles? Like, when I started, man, I had long hair and then I had to get it cut for a job and I didn't have a beard. And it's like, maybe I'll book more if I have a beard. I'm constantly experimenting and strategizing because there isn't really no answer to like, should you grow your hair or not? Like, I don't know. It might work, it might not. You just got to keep experimenting and try to hold on to the things that have worked. Um, and just fail forward. When it doesn't work, that's not a loss. That's a huge lesson. It's like, okay, now I will never do that again. I'm glad it was with somebody who doesn't care, or is very cool about it or took the time to educate me. Um, and things blow over. It just takes longer then. It takes time. If you go to set and you make a fool of yourself, you'll probably get another crack eventually, but you might have to wait a year till that coordinator even wants to call you again. So that's the rub. It's not like life or death, but there can be high enough pressure to where it kind of almost feels like that sometimes.
Yeah, but it's uh okay, my next question, I think it will take a lot of time and we have 7 minutes left on this one. Uh Before that, I just wanted to have a story from you, which was like, I just want to know one of the failure story and one of the success story, and what you learn from it. I don't think people learn from success. I wholeheartedly believe that they don't learn anything from success. But what was your thing like? Okay, I failed, but I think I learned something.
Oh, dude. Um, Yeah. I was actually thinking about this today. So I went to set earlier today. I wanted to meet a coordinator, and so I went to Hustle. And it was far. It was in Pomona. I live in Hermosa Beach, so it was, an hour and a half to get there. And it brought me back to when I first met Buddy Love, who's like one of my best mentors now. I've worked with him quite a bit. And the first time I went to hustle him, I like took off work and I kind of needed the money. I was like, nope, I'm gonna invest in myself, drove all the way down to Long Beach. And they were trying to get a shot during magic hour. So it was like the last shot of the day, fighting against the sun. I got there and I could just tell it was like not the right time to like interrupt and introduce myself. And that really sucked, like driving back after like a fruitless mission. I was like, what am I even doing? But then that same friend hit me up like a month later and I got to actually meet him. And then I was working for him like a week after that. So I think that was these days, whenever something doesn't go the way I wanted, when it seems like you pretty much got a job and they're like, all right, bro, like hold the date, like stand by. I can't wait. Like, it's going to be huge. And then you don't hear back for like a day. And then all of a sudden they text you and they're like, sorry, they went in a different direction.
Mhm. Okay.
That thing you thought you were going to do is like not happening. Those suck. And it used to really like throw me like for days at a time. And I think the biggest lesson I learned from all those disappointments where you go and you think like, I'm going to meet Buddy and you don't. But it's like when things end up working out better later, you start to learn that there are no losses. There's just like lessons and timing. Um, and it's- honest feedback is so good. If a coordinator tells you that you're doing something wrong, it's like, at least now you don't have to do it anymore. But if you're unaware, you might just keep doing it forever. So that I think is the biggest like hard lesson I've gotten is just like with resilience comes learning. So yes, your failures are arguably a bigger deal in the long term than your wins. Um, but then I've had so many like cool experiences too where it did pay off. Um, just like when you connect with an actor and you're doubling them and then you double them on another project, that like camaraderie across
Mhm.
universes is really cool. And even just on set, there was a we were both PAs on Dropout. This is back when I was like doing that. And this one girl was more kind of on the AD track and she was like taking it very seriously and knew what she wanted. And then right after the strike, I booked my first like major movie. So it was going to be like further than I'd ever gone in stunts, like by far my biggest set. Um, and I was very hyped. And then we did it and wrapped or whatever. And she was like no longer a PA. She was like department head of something, but she was there that day. And she told everybody on set, like, yeah, like, this stunt guy who did okay today, he was like a COVID PA on my show, like not that long ago. And at first I was like, oh, like, don't tell everybody that. Like, this is embarrassing. But everybody on set responded and like they were like, dude, that's amazing. Like, it's cool to see somebody like change their stars or like grow. Um, so that was just one of those kind of happy, like years had gone by, but we both got emailed the same call sheet and ended up on the same spot. And, you know, it's she had grown and I had grown just in completely different ways. So stuff like that can be kind of cool. And the more you work, the more you bump into like familiar faces. You'll hit like a makeup artist a couple of times in a row, and it's like a friend that you don't always get to see. So you savor those moments and people watch you change over the years.
Oh, that's a really cool story, to be honest. But in a sense, like in your first movie, said the stunt was really um what was it like? Like, did you feel out of place a little bit, or what?
Yeah, it was a really simple stunt. It was for this movie Shell, which it's still in post.
Mm.
But basically the beginning of the movie, I'm not sure, like, but it was just a really simple gag. I had to like grab this actress and pull her out of screen. So she ought to one of those.
Oh,
And
okay, okay.
yeah, like build suspense, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Who's in here?" Whoosh. So the
Okay.
timing, and it's like my first, kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, it's simple, but like I'm gonna do my best here.
Mm.
And they didn't even call in the actor who I was doubling. They just had me there that day because we weren't delivering lines. It was just,
Mm.
him doing that. And the actress, we're like, meeting each other for the first time, and I'm a little nervous. She's like a star, and I'm just a brand new stunt guy. And she like turns to me and looks me right in the eye and is like, "Hey, no offense, but I don't really want like I want a real stunt guy here. I don't like I'm sure you're awesome or whatever, but I just don't feel comfortable with an actor doing this. No offense to you, but like we need your stunt double for this or I'm not doing it. And that's where I had to be like, ma'am, you know, I am the double and Julie is a pro and she's been doing this for a long time and we're gonna do amazing and you're gonna be super safe. I got you. And then yeah, we did the scene, and by the end, she was like we had created some really good rapport, and the director was happy. So it's like, just check your ego, like I didn't let it throw me. Um, but it's yeah, you never know like what people are worried about.
Oh yeah, and it's your job to make them feel like I know what I'm doing, right? In a sense.
Yeah, I needed her to be super confident for this moment, and we did it, and I learned a lot that day. Yeah, so it was
Okay.
cool. Yeah.
Okay, so since we are at the end, I just wanted to thank you for your insight in the industry. And I just wanted to ask you a few things. First was like, if there's one thing that you'd want to leave our viewers with, what it will be, and you can, it's up to you, and the stage is yours.
Right on. Well, dude, first of all, thank you for having me. This is cool. And thanks for dealing with my dark apartment. This is our
That's fine.
third location. um, yeah, man, I'm trying to think of something I would have wanted to tell myself. Um, I would say this is gonna sound it'll make sense eventually, but just the journey is honestly like where it all is, I think people overlook all the steps that it takes to get on set and then you get there and it's like the fastest day ever and you get home and you're sitting there and then you don't know when you're going to work again. So like the glory is really a small percentage of our time in this field. Um Way more of the time you're going to be sweating and moving and acting and doing stuff like that has no guarantee of ever mattering to anyone except for you. But it's still important. And I just think embracing the journey and all the ups and downs on it, man, like and I don't say that lightly because there's been some downs. There's been times where I'm, like, in here, and I don't know what the next move's gonna be. Um, and I just go to training, and I just and then the phone rings, and I would say just one thing that I've always that I wish I might have done better in the beginning is just don't be as conditional, Don't be in a good mood when you're booking and then bummed when you're not. Like, when I look back on it, some of the harder times are when I was learning the most, and the times where I was too busy to train, I was just working all the time and going from one fitting to the next and boom, boom, boom. It's like, yeah, it was fun and a lot of stuff paid off, but I wasn't necessarily like learning and so I think don't judge any part of the process. Like the drive to the gym for the first time is the most important drive up to that point, and even if it's your first choreo, man, you went to your first one. And if they gave you notes and you go back next week and you fixed one of those, then you're on the path and you're walking on the same sidewalk that I walked on not that long ago. So, yeah, the hard times they suck, but they're not forever. And it feels like it, but I promise they're not. And the only way you really lose is if you just throw in the towel and quit. So, um don't save all your like celebration and happiness for when you book. It's happening all the time. Um, and then when you book, that's just like proof of all the work you put in. And you
Good.
do your best, and just get right back to it. So
Okay, that's really great. And secondly, if there's any other projects or any other information or any other thing that you want to put it out there for the world to see or mostly the internet to see what it will be right now, like any projects that you want to talk about or anything, or as an acting gig that you want to talk about?
yeah. Yeah. obviously our industry is at a place right now, every training I go to, it's like the first thing people want to say is like, "Oh my god, it's so slow, it's so hard." And I just try to realize that that's happening for everybody. Um, so it's not like it's unfair. It's not like it's only hard for me. It's we're all going through it. Um, so yeah, work is pretty scarce, even for like really well established people that have put in the time and put in 20 years more than me. They're still struggling. So I would just say, it's like just appreciate what's happening and know that, whatever you're meant to learn at the time, if you it, the mantra I used to always go to was, "I have everything I need and I'm smart enough to get what I want." I would, like, write that in my notebook over and over and over, just trying to force myself to believe it, and when things finally started to happen, I, like, looked around my apartment, and it was true, man. Everything I use now was already in here. Um, I had everything I needed, I just had to figure out how to use it, so, yeah. Oh, it's it the journey is just wild, so plan on that, you're not doing anything wrong, um and that's why having mentors is yeah, I'll advocate for that forever. Like, it's really important to be a mentor when you're called to be one, and it's important to find those people in your life, and the way you repay your mentors is by showing them that you listened. So, go get those notes and then take them and apply them.
Okay, amazing, amazing. That's a really good advice. I will add your social media, your Instagram in the link. And also, if you don't mind, can you send me the episode with Travis and Sean?
Oh, Steve.
Oh, Steve, yeah. So
Yeah.
that people will know. And I will tag that in too. And it was amazing to have you. And hopefully we'll see you again and I'll talk to you again in the future. And hopefully we'll work together too again in the future.
Good. Yeah, I would love to.
Uh, and we'll see each other soon. And okay, we'll see you around. And that's it. That's it. I don't know what else to say.